Hello everyone, and welcome back to Complete and Total Random. Today we're going to be going over 5 more tanks that I would like added to War Thunder. To start with, we will go over the M1 tank testbed. This late 80s prototype was not designed as a new tank for production, but instead was used as a trial vehicle to test new technologies and find new design elements that could be brought into future designs. This tank featured an unmanned turret on a heavily modified Abrams hull. The hull had all 3 of its crew members side by side in the front of the chassis. The gunner used multiple screens connected to cameras in the turret to aim and fire the gun. The 120mm cannon was fed by a carousel autoloader with all of its ammunition stored in the hull and was designed to be on par with the A1 in terms of armor, while being only 48.45 tons due to the lack of a conventional turret. Next up, we have the super heavy tank, the Char 2C Lorraine. This variant of the standard Char 2C was heavily up-armored during 1939. Its frontal armor was thickened to 90mm, its sides were thickened to 65mm of armor, and its roof was also thickened to a total of 50mm of armor, making this the most heavily armored tank of the time. This took the tank's weight from an already staggering 69 metric tons to 75 tons, meaning it was by far the heaviest operational tank built up to that point. All of the Char 2C tanks had their own name, such as the Lorraine. This behemoth was originally called the Lorraine, though after its upgrades were completed, its name was changed to the Normandy. Next up, we have 2 turret prototypes built for the chassis of the heavy tank M103. First up is the T-57 oscillating turret. This massive turret was designed to house a 120mm cannon that was rigidly mounted inside of the turret. Because of this, it allowed an extremely fast autoloader to be mounted in the turret, featuring 127mm of armor sloped at 60 degrees on its turret face, and up to 137mm of armor on the sides of the turret. This turret was extremely well armored for an oscillating turret. The turret, though, was rejected due to reliability issues coming from the oscillation of the turret itself. Next, we have the T-58 oscillating turret. This is another turret for the M103 chassis, and this turret was similar to the T-57, though it had some major differences. First of all, its gun, sporting a 155mm auto-loaded gun. This gun had a different autoloader. This design had to be different because the gun was not rigidly mounted, instead operating on a recoil system. This turret was one of the biggest oscillating turrets to ever exist. Both the T-57 and T-58 heavy tank turret prototypes were both mounted on modified M103 chassis and tested on M103 chassis, and I would definitely like to see them as such in game. Next up, we have the original Char B1 heavy tank. This tank sported only 40mm of armor all around when compared to the B1 BIS, and wielded the SA-34 cannon in its turret instead of the SA-35 cannon seen on the B1 BIS and B1 TUR in-game. Only 42 of this version of the tank would be built before the production was completely switched over to the B1 BIS. And finally, last but not least, we have the Object 277. This heavy tank prototype was built in 1957. It was developed alongside the Object 279 before the Soviets scrapped the idea of heavy tanks, going more towards things like anti-tank guided missiles and other ways of destroying them in the 1960s, featuring 290 millimeters of armor on its turret face, 140 to 138 millimeters on the front of the hull of the tank, and 112 millimeters on the sides of the tank. This tank was extremely heavily armored. It used a similar 130 millimeter cannon as the Object 279, as well as sported a 14.5 millimeter machine gun. This gun on the 277, the gun on the Object 277 required a assisted loading mechanism, so not a complete auto loader, but an assistant to help the loader load the shells due to their immense weight, making them essentially impossible for the loader to load into the gun. I think this tank would honestly make a really good addition, somewhere 8.387, kind of where the IS-7 and the Object 279 sit. And with that, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, go and check out my other videos on tanks that I would like in War Thunder. And I'll see you all in the next one.